Well, welcome to the ACE Show. This is where we help professionals succeed and thrive both personally and professionally. And this is a chance where I get to showcase some experts, or what I like to call aces in their field, to leverage that knowledge to support you in this community, help you grow and thrive, succeed professionally and personally. And there's this great quote from Albert Einstein that I like that came to me as I was thinking about our conversation, Rebecca, coming up is you have to learn the rules of the game and then you have to play better than anyone else. And I share that because Rebecca, who I get to chat with today, she spends her time helping other people, professionals, learn the rules of the game so that they can level up their skills and they can be better than anyone, right? And so that's why I'm excited to have you here, Rebecca. So hi, how are you?
I'm phenomenal. I'm unbelievable, as they say. Yeah,
Oh,
thanks for having me.
yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. For those of you who don't know Rebecca, she's a corporate sales leadership consultant, and she's the owner of Rise Up Consulting. She lives out in Maple Grove, if I'm correct, in Minnesota with your husband and your two kids. She's a best-selling author, and she's a best-selling author of two books. I have one of them. One's called Beyond the Board: How to Achieve Your Vision Board Goals in Fulfilling and Sustainable Way, and the other one, which I have, which is Leaderboard to Leadership. I just got it, so I'm looking forward to reading through it. But I'm also looking forward to just having you chat a little bit about what it is, how it came about. That's how to earn and excel in your first sales leadership role. I have a soft spot in my heart for newbies in leadership or newbies in sales. So this is great. She's a fellow alum for my Southwestern book selling alums out there. We have another one, we used to sell books door to door. We were just a couple years behind. As I was leaving, you were coming,
Mhm.
but that's great. Went to Marquette University, I think. Marquette. I said
Yep.
Marquette University.
Market,
Yeah.
market, market. Yeah.
Fun fact, this is what I just learned, is that you started taking up pickleball. And for those of you who don't know, it is the craze for anybody that's in 65 or older age bracket. So you have just joined the craze of the senior citizen, and now it's actually branching down to younger. I see it everywhere. All tennis courts are being converted into pickleball courts. And so
Yeah. So if anyone's wondering if I'm a world-class athlete, that should tell you no.
there we go. There's your answer. Yeah. But as I like to say before these calls get started, everyone just be prepared to get a fresh perspective. I like having people from all different skills, experts in different fields, and so show up with an open mind, maybe a willingness to take action. If there's something you hear that Rebecca is going to share, I know she's going to be filled with lots of great information. And think about how you can take one or two of the ideas that are going to be shared or the strategies and implement them in your personal life, in your business. If you're a leader, or even if you want to be a leader, if you're new to sales, if you're new to business, I imagine there's a lot of great things that Rebecca is going to be able to help share. And so with that, welcome to the A Show, Rebecca. That was a long setup, but I want to make sure everyone knows how awesome you are. And why don't you just take a moment and tell us just a little bit about how you got to where you are now? Where what's kind of what's your journey?
Yeah. It started in a cold winter day in 1981. No, just kidding.
I like it. That's a great
I won't
start.
give you the whole story. The short of it is I grew up in the middle of seven children to some very in a very working class like a small dairy community in Wisconsin where hard work was expected and the only way you were going to succeed in life was to work hard. And so all of my siblings and I have college degrees, but we had to pay our way through school. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was high school valedictorian, but very, very lost. Like I just was really stressed out on what I wanted to do. Was recruited to sell books like you were, door to door, 80 hours a week. And that was my introduction into sales, but it was also an introduction into what could really happen if I used that hard work ethic. And I learned kind of the power of individual success. That was where I was. And then I got into leadership and found that I enjoyed that more. I was actually better at it. And I think I was better at it because although I did end up in the top 1% of sales, I didn't get there off of this natural sales talent. I got there through studying and just pushing, and so I'm not someone. I think I've been in sales for a long time. I've learned how to do the job well and to meet people where they are, but I've never considered myself the typical, like when you think of a great salesperson, that's not how I would picture myself. But I worked with a sister company. Then I got recruited into the insurance business, and that's what I did. I would set up new markets. Believe I had folks in maybe 6 or 7 states, and I would train new insurance agents, and I train leaders, and I ended up burning out from that back in 2014, which sort of coincided with the birth of our second child. So I got to gracefully walk away from that career, but the truth was I was just really lost. And those lessons of burnout, of putting our identity into something external, all the lessons of what I did well in sales and sales leadership and didn't do well, I kind of marinated on for a few years. Then I launched Rise Up Consulting. So, the short of that is I started coaching women business owners, then I coached salespeople, then I had a huge influx of sales leaders, and I looked around and I went, there's no one really helping sales leaders. It was
Mhm.
a very, people would say sales leaders, but they meant leading in sales. They didn't actually truly mean supporting people leaders. And so I remember reading a quote in the book Everyone Deserves a Great Manager by Scott Miller. It was a Harvard Business Review stat. And it says that the average age someone receives their first leadership promotion is age 30, and the first leadership training they receive is age 42.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a decade of trial and error, and then I started getting curious on what that actually costs people in the learning curve of frustration or turnover or just burnout, and then what it costs organizations. And, then again, I looked around and I was like, "No one else is doing this. Is this really dumb or is this really smart?" So we went all in, and so I wrote a few books on the subject, trademarked programs on it, and then I kinda went corporate. So I just work with corporate sales leadership teams now. I have a few opportunities to work individually or these one-off group accelerators, but I find a lot of purpose and fulfillment of helping high-performing, driven to succeed people do that, but do it in a sustainable way and actually slow the heck down when
Mhm.
all they want to do is go faster, is to help them slow down and provide space to go, how could we be doing this smarter? What does the sales leader of the future really need in an AI world, in a technology world? We're still going to need great leaders. And what's happening is they're not getting better. They're getting worse. And so I just feel very passionate about working with vision and value driven organizations who can meet their leaders where they are. And that helps my 3 R's: recruiting, it helps retention, and it helps revenue.
Mhm. I think this is, and one of the reasons I got brought into one of my most recent companies was because, they had some leaders and they had retention issues with not only the sales reps, but the leaders were leaving. And there was no training, there was no program set up for the SDR, the BDR leaders, those kind of frontline people who pick up the phone, and the leaders who are coaching them. And so I was brought in for that. I mean, there's some stats out there, and I don't know the exact stat, and I have it somewhere, but um, people will leave if they don't feel like they're cared for. And so I was brought in literally to just show some love to these leaders and just help them. These are first time leaders too, oftentimes, especially in the new roles, right? And so I just love what you're talking about, how important it is to show love to these leaders and just give them some basic guidelines and principles on how to just run a meeting and how to have a good one-on-one and how to structure uh, their their time and utilize their time more efficiently. And then, when's the best time to have a meeting? What kind of meetings do you have? When do you get hard on them? When do you have those tough conversations? And so all those little things that they just companies sometimes just miss. And so anyways, I love that you talk about that.
Yeah, it's there's a ton of stats out there on Gallup's done a ton of research. They have the Q12 surveys, for engagement of does my manager care about me? Do I know what's expected of me at work? Do I have a best friend at work? All of these, connections to tenure, which are really important. But yeah, in sales and sales leadership, it's 18, 19 months and people are off to the next role. And that's a problem, and it doesn't need to be that way, and training doesn't solve 100% of that, but if new sales leaders you talked about, learning the rules of the game in the introduction, but salespeople can figure out the rules of the game and win in sales, and they get into sales leadership, and there aren't actually rules of the game. It's very nuanced, it's very gray, it's no longer black and white, and that frustrates the heck out of leaders, and so, um sometimes they'll hit their wall, early and they'll kinda work through it, and then other times, they will work as hard as they can with the best attitude that they can as a sales leader and then say, "I can't do this. I'm gonna" and what they do is they don't go back into an individual contributor role with their organization, they leave the organization as a whole. So I just think providing people space to and you don't need to be a sales leader. Like sometimes you can have a phenomenal, many times you can have a phenomenal career being a high performing salesperson. So
Mhm.
it's not the only path to advancement, but I think this connection of data, connecting to the feelings of people, putting them all that head and heart together into development and actually just rethinking how this feels and how that feeling in sales, especially and for feeling for sales leaders really impacts how they lead and that affects customers, it affects everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. W So, because a lot of the people who join this call or will listen to it, I mean, from my experience, at least from what I'm seeing so far, they're entrepreneurs. They're trying to, they're kind of that 1 or 2 person outfit organization trying to get started. And so I feel like I would love to chat with you. You started Rise Up Consulting. This was several years ago now. Um, and I'd be interested on behalf of, and maybe even for me, because I'm also a startup myself. What are some of the biggest challenges that you experienced when you were starting to kind of run your business? Yeah, that you think, gosh, I wish I would have known that back then. What I know now. Is there what are some of the bigger challenges that you have, or can you think of any?
Yeah, no, I definitely can. Yeah, so November 1st of 2018 is when I launched Rise Up Consulting, and I had had a few people from just previous work relationships that were like, "Hey, when you're ready to start your business, I'd love for you to coach me." And I was doing coaching at the time, not consulting and kind of what we're doing now. Um but it's extremely hard. I didn't take out any money. I never took a loan. We've always been in the black, but things were really tight. And so I created the first website and I did that on through like a Wix platform at the time, and I kind of did all of the things, but I wish I would have focused more on people whose problems I could solve, but also had a budget. I found myself meeting with a lot of people who they really wanted, assistance and they deserved help, they deserved support, but they just couldn't commit to whatever I was charging at the time, which is very minimal compared to what we charge now because of the ROI we can deliver, but that was a lesson, and I think I've only been self-employed. I have never worked for a corporation. I work with them now, but I've been a 1099. I've had businesses that have supported me as an individual contractor of them, and as I built teams, it was volunteer armies that I was leading. These weren't salaried salespeople or salaried sales leaders. They were all, vol they weren't volunteers, but they were straight commission.
Yeah.
So, but people, there's just this, everyone sees the highlight reels and they see all these successes and people will say, "I'm making this much money," but they don't think through how challenging it can be or the investments that people make into their businesses. And the advice I would give is to be very focused on where you spend your time and be
Mhm.
very focused on what you're investing into there's just a lot of noise, and there's a lot of tools, and there's a lot of cool things, and I just think at
And a
the end of
lot
the
of
day.
people will go out and reach out to you and wanna help you, but that costs money as well.
Yes. Yeah, so I did invest in, I would always invest in, like, getting certifications that I felt would help my business. I invested in coaching from people, group coaching. I did group coaching. I didn't do any one-on-one coaching as I built my business. I did the group, but I found that that was very helpful, and I also think surrounding yourself with really good people. And if there's folks that, if you just know you tell them an idea and they're not going to be supportive, don't share it with them. So I've had people personally close to me I just didn't share ideas with because I said, I think I know what they're going to say. They're going to say that's kind of dumb. And I don't think it's dumb. And so I need to get proof of concept before I actually share it. And
Yep,
so,
that's right. Yep.
um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that helps. I did do a like a when Rise Up Consulting was 5 years old, we released some videos a few years ago on just some of my top 5 lessons from 5 years in business. And I'm even forgetting what those top five were, but I know that I have them out on my YouTube,
I'll look that
um,
up.
yeah, channel. But I just, I think it's hard and it's squiggly and it feels when I'm in the process, my stomach feels like nails on a chalkboard, and I just that's normal.
Mm.
And it's not permanent, So
That's right. Yeah, it's definitely, squiggly is a great way to kind of put it. It's just, I'll have one week where it's just success, great proposal, sign up contract, and then a couple weeks where it's just kind of building and working and can continue to kind of create content and yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest lessons I've learned, I would have I, I would have tried not to be so perfect with everything being set up. I would have just started sooner. And so I would have started some of my outreach to people about my site, and I would have started a little bit more connection with people earlier rather than waiting for it to be perfect because it's just not going to be perfect. And I understood that, but I still was reticent for about 6 months to really kind of go out there. And now I'm much more aggressive about kind of being out there and inviting people to take advantage of things. You know, over time, creativity starts coming and you start coming with creative new ways to, to, to get your message out and have people, try and support people. And so perfection is a
yeah, there's
mistake.
a phrase that I had heard that I latched on to because this is my MO. It's like massive imperfect action is kind of how but it was something along if your earlier work doesn't embarrass you, you started too late. And so even when we were talking last week, you said, which book should I get? And I was like, definitely Leaderboard to Leadership. It's not that my first book, Beyond the Board, is bad. It's good. But I'm just like, I'll reread. I'm like, oh my gosh, was that the story I used? Was that actually where my storytelling was at the time? And it's just, I'm working with an organization now for their sales. We've customized sales leadership development. I worked with them in 2022. We're doing it again this year. I'm going back and I'm like, did I charge them 6 figures for this? I went and I mean, it was good at the time, but I just went, "Wow, we are so much better today." And so, and I do believe in repurposing content, and you don't need to improve everything all of the time, but, um, I think that that's normal as well, and you're right, it's, even I find myself like, why am I scared to reach out to this person? Or the worst thing they can do is tell me no, and it's the same position we were, but we need to be the biggest, um I was gonna say convict, but that's not right. But we need to be the biggest believers in what we do, and no one's going to love it as much as we do. But if we can serve and we can help, and we know that we have receipts, we know that people are doing well after they work with us. Why wouldn't we shout that out from the rooftops?
And there's so many companies out there, I can imagine, and I'm starting to get more and more, understanding of that they need it. You just need to give them a chance to go, "Oh, okay." Didn't think about you until you tell them a little bit about what you do, then then it's in their mind, so I imagine what's gonna happen in this situation is and probably what happened with you might have had that conversation, you said it when they said no, that doesn't mean it's a no forever. And so now you're in their mind. And I imagine even in that situation when you reached out and they said no, my guess is you probably have at least one story of someone a year later or a year and a half later or 2 years later reaching out and now they're ready because you put the idea in their mind. It wasn't the right time at that moment. And so that's what I'm also trying to play this longer game when it comes to building out your business. It's a long game. Be consistent, be, a champion of you and what you have, and be resilient. Just keep going. Don't give up kind of thing. Oh.
Yeah, and I don't there's no perfection around that. Like
Mm.
I have been told that I have some of the best compliments I've gotten are around my ability to play the long game, and I feel like I do it very well. But I also have short-term sights. I have messed up with reach out on people because I've had some short-term goals and I've pushed
Uh,
messaging and I should not have pushed, but I think that we all will make mistakes in business and it's okay. It's like, okay, well we just have to continue. But that perspective, and I feel like a lot of folks are just, they get so caught up in this short term or the short term wins or the bank account or whatever it is. And it is a long game of service to people who need what you do.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, speaking of, you talked about your book, so I think maybe it's a good chance to pivot. I want to talk a little bit about. Could you tell us a little bit about this one here, the leaderboard to leadership? How did it come about? You had one book already, and so why did you not rest on your laurels there? Your laurels, you've had that. What was the inspiration for this book? How did it come about?
I- yeah, it's I joke, I'm like, I'm never writing another book again. It's so much work.
Because I want to write one.
It's
So
a
this
lot
is
of
also
work.
a great story.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of work, but I had created my trademarked Leaderboard to Leadership program for organizations already. And then I thought, this has been really successful, but not everyone's going to work directly with Rise Up Consulting in this capacity. And so I just felt there's a lot of other ways to reach leaders. And I had a lot of great stories, and I feel like sometimes we don't do a good enough job marketing stories internally at organizations about people's success and wins, extra whatever it is. And I thought there's so many great stories of just some phenomenal leaders I've been blessed to work with that I kind of wanted to share their stories and provide that insight for other sales leaders, emerging sales leaders, frontline leaders, leaders of leaders who are leading the frontline leaders. It gets kind of complicated, but um, yeah. So that's what that book, how that came to be. And I didn't copy and paste my program, but it does kind of flow the way that our proprietary programs work. And it was really fun to share some insights from some pretty brilliant people.
That's cool. I haven't read the book, and I promise I look forward to reading it. Definitely diving into it. So I apologize. But I'd be interested to know if this is relevant to what you're talking about in the book. What are some of the biggest challenges or the obstacles that you see first time leaders experience? Is there something is
Yes. No, yeah, it's definitely in there, and they're very common. So, I did a leaderboard to leadership survey, I think back in 2021, and I share some of the data in there. But again, there was no data on frontline sales leaders. I tried finding it. It was now there's been a little bit more
Mhm.
since then, but there was nothing, and that shocked me. So I had to do my own research. But the there's a few things. So a new sales leader typically comes from sales. So 75% of sales leaders said that they came from the top 25% of the sales leaderboard. They were top producer, moved into leadership.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're a producing sales leader, which is challenging as all get out. And so they've added all these new roles. So time management's the biggest issue for them, but that comes a lot of stress as well. So that's an issue. Then there's an issue determining what they're supposed to, who they identify as, and where they're supposed to be spending their time, and what success looks like in that role. And that transition, it's not a natural thing to sit and reflect or actually think about it or what brings you results or how to utilize your strengths now in a different role where it's different rules of engagement. So figuring that out, that's a huge issue. Some of the nuances with relationships, sometimes leaders are managing their friends, their old peers. Sometimes they're managing somebody who also applied for that promotion and did not get it. Sometimes folks are promoted into leadership and they weren't top producers, and people are going, "What street cred do you have?" It's like
Sure.
there's a lot of nuance there. And um but there's also a lot of things that sales leaders have working for them as they're new. And so I would just invite sales leaders to get curious and to, most of us don't do this well. This is why we need feedback from other people, but to really consider, okay, where am I? Where am I going to do pretty well at here? What should I lean into? And what might be some blind spots? What might be some areas to work on? And that gap is fine. The gap between where we are and where we wanna be should not be frustrating. It should be very inspiring. But those are just some off the top. And then there's organizational challenges, which when I'm working with my corporate clients, we talk about those, not just with the sales leaders. But um, to answer your question, those are the top challenges for these new sales leaders.
Yeah. I mean, I find also, I don't know if there's a one-to-one correlation of, okay, I'm a great salesperson. That means I can now be a great leader. And oftentimes great salespeople, I think we maybe even had a conversation about this a while ago. But I don't think a great salesperson necessarily equates to a great leader. How do you help someone like, let's just say I'm a top salesperson, which I have been, and now I'm moving into a leadership role. And then, I mean, you talk about all these challenges. What do we start with? How do we help someone like myself? Okay, I've never led before, but I'm really good at sales, so I'm just going to coach them the way I do it, and that's going to work for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, it's totally true. It's totally true. And it's not done. Sometimes it's done out of ego, but for the most of the time, these top performers who become salespeople, it's out of good intentions that they say, "I'm going to teach them the way I did it because I know that works." But that's a very small sample size. One person's a very small statistical analysis of what you're judging and making assumptions about. And so, to your point, I can't teach someone empathy. I can't teach them, but I can teach them how to think about, and that's what we do in our programs. It's like, let's just put yourself in their shoes. They will not do it the way you do it. And so we like to provide strength assessments as well. And there's a ton of stuff to that, but just really simply teaching people how to be strength-based sales coaches. And they salespeople get this when you make the correlation to you sell to someone the way they want to buy. Great salespeople naturally do that. Do the same thing. Do the same thing in sales leadership. Coach to how, not what they prefer or how they like to be coached, but what actually works for them. Coach them, and that clicks with top salespeople. But it's strange because they'll accommodate a prospect, but they won't always accommodate a peer or a direct report. But you got to deal with a direct report all the time, and you see more of their problems. You're a lot more patient. You treat them differently because they are different relationships, and it's much more complicated. You have to work with your coworkers. You don't work with some do, but you don't work with your clients as much as you do coworkers.
Do you have any, uh, and you can, if it nothing comes to mind, do you have any success stories? Can you think of anybody that you've worked with that they had this challenge and then you've seen? I mean, like, I imagine you get the chance to see this awesome progression. Does anything come to mind off the top of your head? This is a random out of the left
Yeah,
field
no, it's
question.
it's I absolutely do because as a consultant, I have to have receipts for what
Yeah.
I do. so I have a ton of stories, and I could tell you 50 actually. But one of my very first sales leadership clients, I was coaching her, and she was your unicorn salesperson. I mean, she almost broke her company record, not for rookies, but for all of salespeople her first year. And the reason she didn't was she was face to face sales and COVID shut it down.
Geez. Yeah.
She was on pace. Then she went into leadership, and she's just very driven, and her mind goes faster than everyone else around her. And so And she's just such a phenomenon. She was such a joy to work with because she was so open to learning and not kind of stuck, was just uber curious, which most successful people are. She was able to set up some systems and think differently about what she was doing. So then she had a top team and got promoted. Um, and now she's actually an executive at her company. She's actually no longer running teams, but had a very fast trajectory. Um, Another great story organizationally was a client of ours, and I actually write about them in Leaderboard to Leadership. I did a whole interview series with them, and it's a company called Leading Edge. And at the time, they were stuck at about $10 million in revenue for several years, and they couldn't scale. They couldn't scale. They could keep hiring salespeople, but they didn't have sales leaders to train, and they couldn't scale kind of beyond what they did. And so had gone through our program, but it forced them. They would have a meeting after the meeting. So they were going through the modules. We'd have our 90 minutes together for discussion, and then they'd have the meeting after the meeting where they'd say, how do we change what we're doing here? So I forced them into accountability and actually changing, not just passively learning something, but changing it. So
Yes.
they had gone from 10 million to 18 million. And then 35 million. And then this year they're on track for $60 million in revenue. And fast growth can break, smaller businesses when they're not breaking. Their sales leaders are not overworked, and they've put some systems into place organizationally. Um, and then a third example, I guess I could say 50, but I'm very proud of the results our clients have had, and it's not because of me. It's I don't leadership, sales leadership. I feel like I do it different, but it's been around for a long time. But we do it different. The order and where we meet people where they are and take their hand and kind of like level them up. It's
Yes.
one of those things. But another organization had their leaders go through our program, and they had 6 leaders, not all their leaders, but 6 leaders grew $62 million in revenue in 1 year. And they were just doing the
Grew
things,
62.
grew 62 million in revenue. And so that was super fun to kind of see too, but it makes a difference. It kind of sounds fluffy, and leadership development in general, there's all the stats on it. That's hard to make a causation with that. It's more of a correlation. But with sales leadership development, if you're doing it right, you connect it to how that's impacting sales and what they're looking at and how they're leading.
And
And you can do
retention,
that.
right? I mean, if you impact the leaders, the retention of the downstream effects, you got you work with a leader, they're going to be more effective at leading their people, and then they'll want to stay more. And so, and talk about all the costs that you save with not having to hire new reps to come in or new leaders. I love the idea. I love this. This is great. And we could talk for a while. I know we could. This is great. Maybe we have another conversation at a later date, but you have something called Rise Up Academy, right? And this is separate from Leaderboard to Leadership, correct? And could you tell us a little bit about Rise Up? Because I think this could be really impactful. Maybe someone on our call might check this out. But could you tell us a little bit about Rise Up and what's
Yeah,
coming?
so Rise Up Academy is just sort of the suite of products that we offer for sales leaders and organizations. And so we have so Leaderboard to Leadership program is under the Rise Up Academy
I see.
umbrella. That's a 10 or a 12-week module that I work with corporate clients with. Then we have a Rise Up the Ranks program, which is not for the emerging, but it's a little different. And then we do our proprietary programs where I'm collaborating with sales enablement, sales leaders, executives, depending on the size of the organization. Because it's one thing to say we're going to put a sales leadership program out, and then it's another to have it be good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
back to our comments before about, if your first version should kind of embarrass you. Like I've kind of gone through the embarrassment cycle for our clients, kind of like learned along with them. And so we can make sure that we're doing that good.
Excuse me.
Well, we do have a 3-week accelerator that we're launching called Igniting Sales Performance, the Catalyst Leader. That's actually a public program, and I only run a few of those a year, but it's 3 weeks. It's like on-demand modules. You can learn as you go. 45 minutes total of content. It's like short videos, so you can watch it like windshield time, or you just have a quick minute. So you don't have to like sit in front of a computer for a long time and do it. And then we have interactive group virtual sessions that we've got coming up, and that starts the 23rd of October. So,
Oh, it's coming up. Okay.
yeah, it's just coming up. Yeah, yeah, and it's the third one we've had this year. I'm super stoked on who's gonna join that. But we have a few spots left. So if folks are like, you know what, I've never done that before, I'm interested, I don't know when this will be, when this episode will go, but maybe before or after. But I'll plan on running some more of those in 26 as well. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah. And is it for cost, or is there a fee to it? I imagine there's a fee.
yes, 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 yes. There's two groups of folks. There for the organizational leaders, sales enablement leaders that are joining this, it's a way for corporations to experience Rise Up Consulting's work. So if you're in that boat, that's a complimentary seat. For sales leaders who are like, I've always invested in myself, I am a student of the game. These top The reason there were top sales performers, top sales leaders, there's a cost to the program. It's under $500 for the 3 weeks, and they have access to it for a year.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, so there's a couple other perks with that, but that's the cost to it. So it's not something that's going to be cumbersome by any means, but I just wanted to provide something super targeted that sales leaders can go, okay, let me get my head on straight. Let me
Yeah.
get around some other people. Let me slow down, and then let's finish 25 strong and go running into 26.
How many clients do you work with in a year? I mean, based on what I'm hearing, if someone goes through, let's say, Rise Up Academy, I mean, that sounds like it's at least a half year program, if not, I mean, it could literally last an entire year. I mean, the way you've got it set up, I'm maybe just thinking bigger, but I mean, there's only so many you can work with. I know you got room because we're chatting. Let's make sure you still
Yeah,
have
yeah,
room
yeah,
for
yeah,
people. But
yeah.
how
Yeah,
do you manage it?
it's really fun, but this is the reason I went from coaching individual clients to group coaching, which I don't do much. The igniting is group coaching, but then went to corporate clients because we could scale these programs without physically having to redo all of the work. Now, I
Mm,
say that, and some of our clients they don't want on demand. They want in-person workshops. They want interaction. They want hands-on activities, and so
yes.
we can do that too. But yeah, I feel very blessed to have the clients that we've had, and the conversations I'm having, the folks that we're lining up for 2026. It's sometimes I feel like, yep, this is good, and then other times I'm like, I'm really glad we have a collection of very smart people to be able to assist. But as a small business owner, I'm kind of flexing at points, and sometimes going, are we big enough? Oh man, we should be bigger. And so I just stay curious, and when organizations reach out, really hope we have the bandwidth that we can support them. Otherwise, we will find people who can.
Yeah. That's great. Well, congratulations on the success you've had so far. It just sounds awesome. You're really making a big impact on people. And just this conversation, I feel like I'm just fired up. So I appreciate you so much. If maybe let me ask, is there any last bit of advice that you might have for someone either who's a leader, um, who really wants to take their leadership skills to the next level, or maybe they have a team and they want to maybe bring in your service. Is there any advice you might have, or last bit of advice that you could share?
Mm, Yeah, I think very quickly. So my mind went to several different things, but when you initially started asking that, I went to just stay really curious. Stay a student of the game as you play the game. Stay a student of the game as you end up coaching the game. We get to certain points, and there's a leader I'm working with right now. It just got a promotion. It's not like he was granted, or like this genie came up and was like, boom, you know everything you need to know. And sometimes we're like, yep, now I know. I got the title. Now I know. And you don't need to know. You don't need to know. So stay a student of the game. Don't fear you have to be perfect, but you need to be very intentional on what you're consuming and who you're surrounding yourself with. And I know you and I learned that years ago at our early days of sales, but um, keep learning from different people. Get out of the echo chamber of your organization, and just be very intentional about that. I just think that's we're this the chaotic world we are in is only going to get more and more chaotic. And leaders need to be able to be equipped with higher complexity of thinking and strategy and emotional intelligence to be able to help themselves and everyone they're responsible to navigate through that. And so I feel like don't be perfect. There's always going to be a gap. Stay curious. Live in the gray. And get yourself around intentional consumption and intentional people.
Live in the gray. I've never heard it said that way, but that's yeah, that's great. Living in it's gonna be a little bit of that reminds me of the squiggly. Live in that s
The
lear
messy middle. The
learn to
messy
love the
middle. Yep.
squiggly. Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Yep.
Well, if someone wanted to reach out to you, Rebecca, how what's one of the best ways for them to connect? Is it just through LinkedIn, or is there a website that they should check out, or
Yep. So LinkedIn's the best way. I'm on LinkedIn quite often. But our website is riseupconsultinggroup.com. And but on LinkedIn, I have a newsletter I've been doing for once a month called Rise Up the Ranks. It's free content. There's a ton of freebies on our website as well. We have some leadership assessments for corporate folks, look building sales programs. And for individual leaders, there's references to freebies that go with Leaderboard Leadership book. There's just a lot on there, but it's very targeted. There's a book club guide. I mean, we have a lot of different worksheets and things for people, but I really believe that if that's what someone needs to get the ball rolling, then I'm more than happy to provide and help them along their path.
yeah, fantastic. That's great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. This has been amazing. I love chatting with you. All right, so well, we've come to the end of the ACE show. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you picked up at least one idea, one way to kind of maybe rethink how you approach leadership, or maybe you want to be a leader and you've picked up one new idea that's going to help you take your skills to the next level. Stay tuned for the next ACE show. And I hope may you all ace your life. We'll see you later.